And I was always driven the fact that you're nothing without the screenplay. You're nothing without the written word, right? Everything moves, everything goes because of that screenplay. That who controls the screenplay controls everything, right? It was in the middle of him doing three different movies at a time, all in different stages of production, pre-production, post-production, and production. And pre-production was I want to say Enemy of the State. In production was Armageddon, and post production was Con Air. So it was
Wow.
a really amazing time to be around and see those movies getting made. Thanks for having me, first and foremost. I'm honored to be on here and be able to hopefully give a few words of wisdom and inspiration while I'm here. From originally San Francisco, the Bay Area, born and raised, went to school in New York, NYU. Came out after film school, and really kind of wanted to learn the business and kind of get into it and kind of get my hands dirty immediately and kind of understand the machinations of what this business was and how it works. I got my first job in Hollywood working for a gentleman named Jerry Bruckheimer, who is this obviously, monolith of a producer. And to come out of school and get that kind of job was pretty, eye-opening and pretty amazing to land that opportunity. Now, let me make sure everybody's aware that that job consisted of being like his ninth assistant at the time, right? I was a little Fisher kid out of college, so I was walking the dog, rearranging the script library, getting him lunch, whatever it may be. But it was a real kind of wake up, welcome to Hollywood job because it was in the middle of him doing three different movies at a time, all in different stages of production, pre-production, post-production, and production. And pre-production was I want to say Enemy of the State. In production was Armageddon, and post production was Con Air. So it was
Wow.
a really amazing time to be around and see those movies getting made. And I was there for about 10 months, and someone's like, listen, if you really want to learn the business and understand it as you're, fresh out of college and kind of learning the world, you really should go work in an agency. That's where the hub of everything happens, the intersection of all art and business and storytelling and drama and not drama, the highs and lows, the peaks and valleys of our business all kind of like runs through the heart and soul as an agency. Is what
Yeah.
is what that was being told. And now looking back, I couldn't agree more. But so I applied around town and got a job at the William Morris Mailroom, which is a very quintessential kind of welcome to Hollywood as well. First
Sure.
job out of in a mailroom at an agency. It was an amazing experience. I then worked for a gentleman named Lee Rosenberg, who was kind of this mentor, very kind of I very iconic agent who had done a lot in the TV world, had created an agency called Triad that had merged with William Morris. He was kind of winding down his career and on his kind of like last few times. So he was really into mentorship, did that for about a year. And during that time, there was a new agency, kind of a startup called Endeavor at the time that was run by Ari Manuel and a bunch of others. And I got a call from two agents over there who said, hey, if you really want to, learn over here, come work over here. This is a new startup. We're exciting and you should come work for us and TV, all of that. So I went to be an assistant over there for some very high-end TV agents over there. Got to work with Ari and a bunch of other people and really kind of got really understanding of the agency space and that world and that kind of that trajectory and how that works. For about 3 or 4 years did that and then took a slight detour and thought I wanted to be back in the producing game. So I went to work at RKO Pictures for a year, which
Wow.
is this kind of historic,
Yeah.
yeah, old school company that, if anybody knows RKO, has done some of the great historic movies at the time. Turner had bought them and kind of really bought a lot of the library at the time. But it was a really kind of interesting experience for a year, seeing how movies can get made and development and all of that. But what I quickly learned is development is a very slow, methodical process. It can take some time. And I had already kind of seen in myself and kind of built up this idea that I wanted to be in the more fast-paced environment of this
Mhm.
business behind the scenes. So went back into agency and started a place called Metropolitan when I was an agent for 4 years. Went left there and went to APA, now called IAG, where I was an agent for about 4 years as well. It's a good trajectory here. And
Yeah.
then got poached and went to a place called Paradigm. I was there for another 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years seems to be the max. Not anymore. I'm happy where I am now, and it's been way past 4 years.
Right.
But I should go back and say, while I was at Endeavor, I met three guys who were also coming up in the business as well at the same time with me at that agency. We all kind of worked together. And Adam Levine, Brian Besser, and Bill Weinstein, and they had started at the time when I was going through those different years of going to different agencies, they had started an agency called Verve. And Verve was on the upswing. It was kind of the new incarnation of what Endeavor was early days. Artist first mentality, very kind of get your hands dirty, very a culture built around uplifting artists and putting them first and foremost, in every conversation. And I decided that was a pretty amazing place to be. And I was really impressed with what they were building there, and they were building it very fast. And while I was at Paradigm, I got a call from them, and they said, "Listen, why don't you come back home and join the family again, so to speak? And let's bring the family back together." So I came over here to be a partner about almost 8 years ago now,
Oh wow.
and we've built this agency into something really, really special, something unique. I think at the forefront of every conversation when it comes to literary talent. IP, books, publishing, you name it, across the board, digital. And we are what I consider the leading agency, one of the leading agencies right now in the business, competing with only ourselves because we feel like, what we do is different from everybody else. And
Sure.
while everybody else goes left, we go right, right? And
Sure.
that's kind of how we've built this place into a really kind of exciting, inspirational, very collaborative, I'd say, atmosphere of art and storytelling.
Well, you are very good at what you do because you just laid out your entire professional bio within. Let's
I
see,
hope
I
no
think
one,
we start.
okay, I hope no one fell asleep during that.
No, no, no. It's quite fascinating. So one of the things that I do on the show, I get into the personality that that is on the
Sure,
show, and I think obviously you're very good at what you do, and you've managed to have some serious success in the game. You know, you covered a lot, and there's a lot of different areas I want to tap into. But just kind of going back, you said you grew up in San Francisco.
sure.
Um, what attracted you to entertainment in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little cliche, but like most kids who are, young individuals who really get inspired by movies and television, it's the big and small screen. It's the idea of having a camera in your hand and kind of like filming and kind of being a part of that, like the allure of what movie making really was, right?
Hmm.
I was given a
Hmm.
camera at a young age, like many, and I fell in love with the idea of like creating something out of ideas of your mind. You could
Mm.
create anything and behind the camera. You could create a story. You could create, an emotional feeling from this camera, this film, this idea that you could go in and film something and tell a story in such a unique way, positive, scary, happy, sad, crying, laughing, whatever it may be. I just truly fell in love with movie making and the idea of what that
Interesting.
story was, what that storytelling lens was all about. And I really, gravitated towards it. I always really thought to me, directing was where I wanted to be. It felt like the real A-type personality in me felt like the idea of being able to master a set and be in control where you're just pushing all the buttons and then seeing the creation come to life. That was really fascinating to me. And it still is a part of me that's inside of me. When you go to film school and you study and you really get your hands dirty and make these small movies and you really, see all facets of it, there's always going to be that inside of you. But what I really fell in love with in the agency space, as I got to understand that, is the idea that you do touch everything involved in this world too. You touch
Hmm.
storytelling, you touch the business acumen of making deals and building clients' careers. You touch
Hmm.
the idea of management and leadership and mentorship and all these different areas and sales, obviously. But at its core, all of it really goes back to the art of movies and TV and
Storytelling.
storytelling. That's what I always say. And it feels like in an agency space, that's what it really was. I wouldn't have been able to tell you back when I was young, growing up, what an agent did. I had no clue what an agent was, no idea. In fact, I would argue that until I came out from film school, did I really grasp what an agent did. Because when I was at film school, different from where, let's
Which film
say,
school? Which film school?
NYU.
Okay.
So when you go to NYU, it's a wonderful top film school, but you're really geared much more, and I'd say this to them if they were sitting here in front of me, much more independent filmmaking. It's much more artistic driven independent filmmaking compared to where you're like a UCLA, USC, which is much more you're in the hub of it all, right?
Yeah.
This is the centralized area of Hollywood that these schools sit. Chapman, Loyola, all UCLA, USC, AFI, the Film Institute, all these places. And it's like to be able to be here, it's a different kind of filmmaking compared to NYU. So my point is that when I was at NYU, I had no clue what an agent did. I just knew what filmmaking and what I loved about it. And so
Mm,
telling stories what I really wanted to do first and foremost, but I
mm.
gradually found where I thought my traits were best suited, which was behind the
Interesting.
scenes, helping to uplift artists into their
Okay.
dreams and goals.
So what was the incident? Because there's always an incident. Like I had a casting director on my
Hmm.
show, and he went into, I was in the theater in New York, and I was doing this and that, and then it
Sure.
just suddenly dawned on me. I said, "Well, what dawned on you?" Well, directing. I said, "Really?" I said, "But you were a casting director. You did some $100 million movies. Why didn't you do the directing part of it, right?" And he goes, "Well, I had to make a living." So the question I have for you is, obviously you made a decision. What was your decision based on? Meaning, what was it that made you go, I'm just gonna do this, or oh man, I really need to do this. What was that? Can you share that with us?
Sure. So while in film school or after I graduated, I saw many kids come out of film school with the film can under their arms, trying to make it as, young directors or go work on sets, being PAs and all of that. And to me, that was an amazing route to take. I understood it completely. That was a very artistic route of like, I'm not giving up my dream. I'm going to do everything I can to get my dream made. I'm going to go work on sets. I'm going to make connections, all of that, right? For me, I took a different approach. What clicked for me was that I wanted to be different than your normal film director coming out of school. I wanted to understand the machinations of how the business worked, right? And I felt so naive coming out that I didn't understand what an agent did to a manager did to what a lawyer did in our business to what a producer's about jobs were and all of these things. As much as I went to film school, it was so hands-on filmmaking. There wasn't the teachings really of the business side of what this business of what it was, and I didn't feel ready for it, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
as I got into the agency space, it clicked. It dawned on me that this is how you understand again the machination of the business, right? And if you could grasp that, if you can control that and understand how the business comes together and you can build relationships and make connections whenever, there's so much farther you can go and not
Yeah.
skip steps and not cheat the system, whatever. But there's so many different opportunities for you to then spread your wings rather
Hmm.
than just being the guy again, which is an amazing way to go too. Being the guy that's like working from set to set, trying to climb up the world, trying to like get my movie financed, trying to do all this, trying to get noticed, trying to all of those things. I really wanted to understand. And to me, if I ever step away from this where I am now, which I don't think, I love what I do. I'm honored every day. I get to go work here and build clients' careers and put them in places to win and tell their stories. But if I ever wasn't doing this, I feel so much more prepared now if I ever took that step into creative space because I understand truly the rhythms and the machinations of what it takes to make it
Hmm.
in this business.
Hmm.
Does that make sense
Yeah,
with it? Well,
absolutely. See, it sounds like you really grasp the business end of this entire thing in the storytelling
yeah.
world. And I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, so many, Stephen, so many don't pull back the curtain and understand truly what it is, what goes beyond
Yeah.
behind the scenes. They have this image or the ideas of what it is, and you'll go to different, dinner parties or you go to, events, or you go to just have a conversation with a person on the street, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, this is what it takes to get in the business, or this is what I think has to happen for me to make it in a business," and you realize they're so uneducated because they don't understand truly the difference behind what really happens behind the scenes and
Yeah.
different levers that have to be pulled sometimes to get somebody to the next level, if that makes sense.
100%. And it's interesting because I got a million questions, but uh,
Sure.
Did you start? I know you're like a lit agent now, but were you always a lit agent? Did you do other types of like
I was
actors
always
or?
I was always driven by the written word. To me, the written word is the most beautiful thing there is in our business. And this takes nothing away from on-screen talent and and everybody being in front of the
Interesting.
camera. But to me, the written word is everything. It's the heartbeat of our business. It's the blood. It's everything. And I was always driven the fact that you're nothing without the screenplay. You're nothing without the written word, right? Everything moves, everything goes because of that screenplay. That who controls the screenplay controls everything, right? Controls it
Yeah.
all, controls how the show's going
Yes.
to go, controls how the movie's going to go at all. Granted, you need all different parts to work to make it seamlessly go perfect, right? And nothing's ever perfect, but you know what I mean? To make it all happen. But at the end of the day, it all starts with the written word. And I was so attracted to that from the very beginning that you can move somebody to, again, tears, cry, laughter, an emotional swing of all different proportions from a written word on the page.
Got
And
it.
that to me was a great sales point to early on to become a literary agent all the way through. So I started out mostly in TV. Doing a lot of TV work in literary, and then gradually, slowly moved into more features where it was my first love was always features, but I kind of got rather like I said, got ensconced in TV early. But now I do both, but mostly feature work. But I oversee a lot now. And by the way, a great joy now is to work with actors who I work a lot with a lot of them in our team here, and helping find their passion projects and helping put because some of the great actors are also great writers too, clearly. So taking some of their great work and putting it on a page is also a gift as well that I appreciate.
I love it.
Uh,
Listen, I'm going to
yeah,
ask you a couple of questions, and then we're going to jump right back into what you're talking about.
no
Any of
problem.
your parents, was your mom and dad, what was their profession?
Sure. Mom was a school teacher, and my dad was
Wow.
in kind of like the lower end banking business. Nothing special. Came from a
Yeah,
very, lower class to middle class family. Nothing, nothing exorbitant, but nobody in the business. No, not one. I
got
think I
it.
had I had a great like third or fourth cousin who was I kid you not, Stephen, a Cher impersonator in Hollywood, and I thought this woman must know. And I mean that was my amazing, right? But that was my only connection to the business, and to
Yeah,
me. I felt, and not knowing her that well, I think I visited her once or twice. I got to see her whenever my family took a trip to Los Angeles. Like I thought she was like the most well-connected person there is in the possible because she was in the business, right? In my mind. So it's
sure,
like that takes nothing away from what she was accomplishing or what she was doing. But
sure.
to me, my naiveness told me, oh, she must know everybody. She must be so well connected. But that was my only real connection to Hollywood or the business, you know?
You know,
Like
I
Cher,
can
a woman who dressed up as Cher every once in a while to go to parties and events. God bless her.
I got two things. One, regarding the written word, your mom's a teacher. There's a connection right there. That makes
Sure,
complete
sure,
sense.
sure. There's that.
Absolutely. And two, I can connect to your story. When I first started screenwriting back in the day, Lou Alexander was my girlfriend's at the time father, and he was an agent in Las Vegas for impersonators.
There you go. There you go, right?
So
You're like,
my
this guy
first
must know everybody. You know what
exactly.
I
So
mean?
I gave him my first screenplay, which was complete shit at the time, and he read it and
Yeah,
he goes,
sure.
"Yeah, nothing really happens till page 70."
You're like, well, if this guy's saying it, Lou must know. He knows everybody. He's a
Lou,
he's a
Lou,
hotshot
Lou.
agent in Vegas.
In Vegas, and
Impersonators.
he's passed on, but I totally
God
understand,
bless.
and we're joking about this stuff, but the reality is somebody is going to be watching this somewhere in some state or some place around the world, and they're going to go, oh well, how do I get to do this? These two guys are talking like no big deal. This guy's an agent. He's just like wow, he's got the world by the balls. What is he doing? And so where does the humanity? Because backtracking to the COVID situation and the double strikes. And I think, in my opinion, I'd love to hear your perspective on this. The double strikes were more difficult than COVID, as far as I'm concerned. What was your experience with that?
Very, very difficult, very humbling, very harrowing for many. Understood completely why. I support artists in their journey and what they were fighting for every day of the week. It was. tough sledding for sure. Hard for everybody. Many people lost their jobs and many people haven't recovered from that.
Mm,
The fight was real. The fight was for something that was important for the future of our business, and especially artists and storytellers. So I completely support it, but harrowing to say the least, and troublesome, because you're fighting big business, big studios, big companies, you know, what I mean, mega companies, mega conglomerates that were, that have so much of an appetite, so little of an appetite for what we do sometimes. And we are sometimes what is it, a balancing error. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like we are, that's what we are inside their different streams of businesses they control, right?
mm,
So
yeah.
I was concerned from the get-go, but fully supportive of why we were doing it and understood it. Now it's just a lot of trying to make up for that time and trying to get people back into their situation where they're working again and they're making the kind of money they were making back then, which has changed. It has, right?
Yeah.
But the good news is people always need entertainment. People always need stories. People always need the art of movies and
Mm.
television, all of that. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There's no better time to be a storyteller, to be an artist than this time right now in the business. Everybody needs it as much as the business has shrunk, has changed, has looks different than it was, like you said, from the strikes. There is still an absolute appetite and need for great material, great storytelling, and great new artists in our business. And that to me is the most gratifying thing that gets me going every single day.
I 100% agree with you. Actually, just a week ago or two, I was telling a friend of mine, I said, I sense a change. I sense some kind of movement. And I myself got more motivated as well to kind of get
Sure.
going again because there was a stagnant, time frame that was like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of treading waters and I'm not going anywhere. Like, what's happening
Yeah.
here, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think,
Totally.
and a lot of goes in that. Now, touching on that is mental health. So, since you are an agent, right, and you're on the business side, and you're kind of like the gatekeeper between your clients and the
Sure.
studios or equity money, whatever it is,
Sure.
how do you handle because artists are sensitive. I don't care what they pretend that they're not, or we're all sensitive. You take shit personal, you know. How do you handle the mental health of that with the people that you work with? Because that's part of it, right?
Listen, there's so much part that goes into being an agent. You're not only their representative for their work, but you're representative for their hopefully for their livelihood, right? So much of it goes into not just work, but life, family, their mental health, all of those things, right? And you want to be there for them every step of the way. A good agent is someone that's not just transactional. It's like this is a relationship, right? And you take very serious everything your client goes through. And you try everything to keep them in a positive place always. It's not easy, right? There's a lot of peaks and valleys, like I said earlier, and ups and downs in our business that can be tremendously trying on someone's mental health for sure. The idea that we constantly work in a business of no to find the yes is a really backwards way of looking at life if you think about it, right? I work in a business where all I do every day is try to fight for that one yes or two yeses, whatever it may be, right? In a business that loves to say no, yet we have continuously, and rightfully so, many artists every day trying to get into our business and want to be storytellers and ever in a business saying no, right? So the mental health of that is crazy, right? It's like it's just hard to fathom that. So you have to be very at peace with the idea that knowing if you believe in yourself, and I always say this, great material finds a way, great art finds a way, great storytelling finds a way. If you believe in yourself, just like there is no reason, I told you the story how I got here. There really isn't any connection or reason based on my success except hard work, belief, and the idea that never give up, right? Mentality, right? That blinders on never give up. I will fight through every wall. I don't know anybody in this business. When I first came in, I didn't have any connections. No one was giving me any kind of like ticket to to the front of the line. It was all about having to fight, scratch and claw to get to a place where hopefully knock on wood, I am now, right? And I appreciate every step of the way of that ride because it taught me and who I am. To the idea of mental health in our business for artists, you have to understand and believe that it will happen. It will come. It's the ones that give up and call and wave the white flag and give up are the ones that end up having the biggest struggle because they don't have the belief in themselves, right? It's the belief in yourself that you're going to get 1,000, 10,000, a million no's, but it's that one yes that will catapult you to the front. And to wait and fight and scratch and claw for that one yes, I cannot tell you how worth it is in our business. There is
Yeah,
nothing better to be in, as you know, Zim, to be in this business, to be a working writer, director, storyteller, artist. There is nothing like it.
yeah.
And it's so worth everybody to hang in there, believe in themselves, believe in their talent, and believe in their work, and have that work ethic and belief that, there's a brighter road ahead. Not easy. I don't paint a picture of just like butterflies and roses and and rainbows.
Yeah.
But I do paint a picture of it happens and it can happen, and there's no reason why it can't happen to you. There's absolutely no reason it can't happen to you. I have
Yeah.
personally, for me, I have found material in the craziest way. Yes, everybody's like, oh, how do you get to you gatekeep or whatever. You'd be shocked in the ways that material has found its way to me over the course of years and clients I represent now who, in theory, came from all walks of life, right? And that's
Sure.
just belief and belief in themselves and belief in their own talent to never give up.
I was watching Christopher Waltz on Charlie Rose, and I actually did a
Uh-huh.
video on that. I have to edit it, but um, Charlie Rose was as an actor in Germany, as you know,
Sure.
and he says in that interview, he says, I was working and I was just, the executives were like, yeah, whatever, yeah, he's fine, he's goofy, he's like this, and he wasn't getting any justification for what he was doing as an actor. He goes, and I think he was like close to 50 at the time. He goes, I lost faith. He goes, I lost faith in being an actor, is really what he was
Yeah.
saying. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, Tarantino found him, right?
Hmm.
And his whole trajectory completely changed. And I think
Correct.
one of the reasons I did a video on this is that I think it's so important, and it goes into what you just said. It is so important not to lose faith. And it's easier said than done, right? As
Correct.
an artist, not to lose faith. Because the one thing about COVID and even the strike, it really almost promoted isolation, right?
Yes.
People,
100%.
people, people moved out. People are not hanging out. They're not going to, let's just call it acting class, writing class.
Sure. Sure.
You couldn't do any of this shit, right? So as tough as the road was, it got harder.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
got a lot harder.
Yes.
And then I
Absolutely.
and then people went onto social media talking on their cell phones. I see a lot of these guys who are like, whatever, writers, actors, they're now trying to capitalize on TikTok. And I feel for that because they
Hmm.
need to express themselves, right? And I'm the
Yeah.
same way. I get it. I started the show because I wanted to express myself.
Yeah. Sure. Of
But
course.
but what happens is like I was watching the Emmys last couple of nights ago, and I thought it was a great show and it was very positive. I was like, they're doing such a great job by showing the prosperity of this business. And it made me remember when I used to watch the Oscars back in the day, going, "Oh, I want to be there." You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's
Eh,
absolutely. And you never it's 100% agree with you on that. COVID was a very dark time for many artists, right? And it staggered people's creative ideas, creative juices, creative forward thinking. And we're still trying to get a lot of it back from people, right? And trying to get
Yeah,
people to get back to unlock that creative gene in them sometimes, right? It's interesting though. It's like sometimes I'll say this, like sometimes the best stories come from the darkest times,
oh
right? And
yeah,
sometimes
oh
the
yeah,
best ideas come from the darkest times, right?
yeah,
And so I've
absolutely.
seen many of my clients who have created some of their best work from the darkest moments in their life. I am not saying I wish anybody any darkest moments in their lives.
Right,
That's clearly not who I am.
right.
I'm not a masochist like that. But it is sometimes in art. They always say like the best comedians, there's a darker side of the best comedians. There's a deep darkness to them, a sadness, whatever it may be. there is something about artists who tell stories sometimes that go through things that some of their best work comes out, right? So my hopes and dreams and coming out of COVID for my clients was they could take that time in isolation and someone that had a very hard time with it and bottle that energy, that creative stuff into those emotions into something really beautiful. And a lot of them did, a lot of them have, which is really special. And whether it be finding a new white space that wasn't there, whether TikTok was there or not at the time, whatever, and creating something on there, finding a new way to create new work, whether it be a play or a novel or a short story, whatever it may be, right? Going out and shooting a short movie, whatever it may be, or funding something for themselves. Just find an outlet through all of this to take that dark stuff and then put it out on the screen.
Yeah.
Really show. I think it's why we also had to run on a very, if you look back, some very dark, kind of dramatic work that came out after post-COVID. A
Yeah.
lot of it, right?
Yeah.
Many kind of smaller indie dramatic work. And I think that speaks to the time we were going through at the time and what artists were dealing with.
Absolutely. You know, this reminds me of the film Babylon and Brad Pitt, the character, and the
Yeah,
talk he's coming back into the picture and how
yeah,
he gets pretty fucking depressed and he realizes that maybe his time is. And I actually love that movie. I love the first 2 hours of that movie. And if you
sure.
cut the last half hour, I'm good. You know, like that's fine. But
Yeah.
that moment with Brad Pitt and pretty much killing himself uh, dramatically, obviously. But it reminds me of the injection of AI, right? Because
Yeah.
I've always said that AI is like not as exact, but it's kind of like talkies coming in when there was no sound. Now you have all
Hmm.
this amazing information about stuff that you can like visual effects. If you wanted to go back in time on a movie, you don't have to spend $1 million on that. You could do it
Yeah.
for probably 100,
Yeah. Yeah.
if not
Yeah.
less.
Sure. Sure.
So
Absolutely.
what's your perspective on AI coming in and artists adjusting to that?
Sure. It's here. I mean, it's just my biggest thing on AI is how do they protect artists from AI taking their work? That's my biggest thing. As somebody that protects art and writers and directors and storytellers every single day, actors, how do I protect my clients and artists in general from having their work stolen from them, right? Or
Mm,
reproduced in a way that they're not excited
mhm,
about or they don't, are aware of or anything like that. I think where there's a lot of safeguards that are coming in and that are going to hopefully help protect clients from that and sorry,
mhm,
and storytellers from that, artists. Um, but I don't think it's perfect yet. And I think that there is some choppy roads ahead with it.
mhm,
We're trying to embrace it here because I think um, not embracing it would be foolish, right? To
mhm,
to turn a
mhm,
blind eye would then be fool's gold because you'd be unaware. You'd be looking. You'd be behind the eight ball when it does come in a
mhm,
very, very big way. It's already here, but it's going to take another sweeping turn and hopefully, in a big way, I think soon,
mhm,
in our space. So for me, it's all about protection right now. How do we
mhm,
protect our clients? How do we make sure they're copyrighted, everything's copyrighted, and they're being fairly compensated for their work if
mhm.
their work is being used in any kind of AI form or duplicated in AI form. That to me is the biggest concern now, and I think that's what we're all trying to really grasp and get our arms around.
Okay. And to just kind of sum up our conversation to a certain extent is that now you said the industry has changed, right?
Yeah,
What is it? And I watched a clip of yours where you were on stage talking about certain projects that are floating in the
sure,
atmosphere. What is it? I've heard what I've heard, but I'd love to get your take on this. What is it
sure,
that the industry is looking at now in TV and film? What kind of genres are they looking at? What's the world in that sense?
sure. It's hard because I think everybody's different, right? If you ask what Netflix looks at, they'd be tell you it's different from what Universal looks at. If you ask what Amazon looks at, tell you what's different from what Disney looks at, right? So everybody has what works for them. Everybody has everybody has their own analytics of what audiences work for them and what do they kind of program to their audiences, right? So some a lot want horror, want romantic comedies, a lot want this. It all comes back to kind of some of the same thing, which is we're still in an IP-driven business, right? Where IP is still king. Things that have kind of are rooted in something that we all know, brands and IPs, and I want to get away from the Marvels and the and the superheroes of the world, but more just like IP-based stuff, right?
Hmm.
Meaning that Marvel and superheroes are its own special area over
Yeah.
here. Talking purely about IP and DC, obviously, over there. IP and stuff. So that's important. I still think people want hope. People want to feel
Hmm.
inspired. People want to feel an emotional upswing when they go to a movie. I think
Hmm.
that's been
Hmm.
the hardest trying to
Interesting.
find for our business, right? In the sense
Interesting.
that
Interesting.
I think more and more of our buyers want to make those movies, but are people coming out to see them? Or are they sitting at home and wait for them to come on the streaming services? So there's an element of to sell theatrical, you have to sell, it has to be an event. It has to feel like it's something that people are going to leave their house, get a babysitter, go out and get dinner, spend the money for the movie, spend all that money to do it and be entertained, right? It has to feel like an
Hmm.
event. So whereas a Netflix and Amazon, places that have the streaming, capacities, it's just about the analytics. They can actually take more chances because they can program differently than the
Hmm.
theatricals can. So
Hmm.
what they're looking for can be inspiration, can be hope, can be action, can be horror, can be small little, indie movie. They can do so much more and have so much more of a platitude of like opportunity rather than or platform to program on compared to theatrical, which it takes a big risk and takes a big shot on something and puts all that money in it doesn't work. That's a big hit, huge hit for them. It's not a
Hmm.
rounding error. It's just a big hit, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm. Hmm.
I think IP driven stuff is still important, but and this is where I hope that your audience feels, invigorated and feels, excited and the word that we like to talk about inspired is that there is still that want and need for original voices, original material, new ideas, new stories to tell, things that move that ask you to have a conversation, things that inspire, that defy
Hmm.
what you would think people are looking to see, but original new stories that studios still are trying to
Hmm.
find and buy that they necessarily don't think they have right now. So where are
Hmm.
those what are those are, I don't know. It can be any genre, but I do know
Excuse me.
that when talking to buyers, talking to everybody, they're all looking for what's that new original story we can tell that hasn't been told already. And
I
that to
love
me,
it.
yeah, and that to me is the best, most inspirational thing you can tell anybody who's listening because that means that there's opportunity. Other than just like, I just want this IP, I just want this, franchise. They want new stories, new original voices, and that's exciting.
I listen. Doing my research on you and then actually speaking to you worlds apart. You're actually you,
I hope it's a good
no.
thing in a positive
Uh,
way.
it's absolutely a positive thing because one of the things I try to focus on, my background as a screenwriter, as a filmmaker. I have a movie coming out.
Sure.
Actually, it's out. It's called Wages of Sin. It's on Amazon and Apple TV.
Congratulations.
And
That's great. That's
thank you,
awesome.
thank you.
Yeah.
We made it for pretty much nothing, but we got distribution and everything you talked about. Just resonates with filmmakers. And a lot of filmmakers tend to get stuck in the waters and just, try to figure things out and do some stupid shit that really doesn't make any sense. But you learn from your failures. I think the
Yeah.
failures are the one that like even the last, year and a half that was kind of stagnant. To me, that's a learning experience. And that I'm now exploring and sharing with people like yourselves. But do you think, and this is probably one of my
By the
final
way, to
questions,
your
because
point, I'm only successful because of the mistakes I've made before that I've learned from, right? That's the only reason I'm sitting here today is because of the mistakes I was allowed to make and learn from and grow from. That's the only way you get to a place in this business where you have some success is you make a lot of mistakes along the way and you learn from them and you grow and you say that is a absolutely learning moment for myself to be a better human being, a better representative, better father, a better husband, all of those things, right?
sure,
So,
sure.
and that's life in itself. Definition of life is
Uh,
learning from your mistakes and growing.
Yes, yes, that would be a whole other episode, by the way. There'd be
Yeah,
a
there you go.
comedy episode going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can think of some really crazy shit. But
Yeah.
just to just kind of sum it up,
Yeah, sure.
do you think that because the world is so much smaller now because of social media,
Sure.
and international markets, obviously that's shifted too as well. But the storytelling aspect of it, do you personally see things a little differently, or are you still in the box of, well, domestic first, international second?
No, I think it's wide open. I think it's sort of a little bit of like the Wild Wild West. Storytelling is wide open right now, and it's
Mm.
it's a matter of the best story wins. Doesn't matter domestic, international, whatever it may be. There's still going to be some biases and some things that are going to work better here than work there, or going to have opportunity to soar in the marketplace there than it does here. And there's going to be still some studios that make things knowing that they won't make a lot of money domestically, but they'll do great internationally, right? There still is that
Mm.
mentality as well, but I still believe people want things that speak universally and speak universally to everybody. And studios and buyers and producers and executives, they all want those universal ideas that speaks to a global mass of individuals and that resonates completely around the world.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about that we didn't cover?
No, just that, this is a beautiful business to be in. I think anybody that wants to get into it should absolutely aspire to be in it. I think it's an amazing world. The art of storytelling, there's nothing like it. I'm honored and so lucky to be in it every day and get to represent the great artists I get to do. I get to represent. But it's a beautiful business, and it's something that I think if you get to experience it, it's a joy, it's an honor to be a part of it, no matter what.
You know, David, I have to say, I don't know why more agents are not doing what you just did with me, because it makes you human,
I
and it
appreciate that.
makes you relatable. Because again, the person, even the ones that are veterans, I know plenty of veterans who are like pissed
Sure.
off because their agents is not calling him back. But
Yeah, yeah,
but
sure.
the reality is, it's like I think the world has come to a, and it's very, I think it's great that you have taken on this conversation with me, and you're just kind of you're rolling with it. And I know we didn't pre-plan any of this; we just started
Yeah, sure, of
talking.
course. I agree. There's too many egos, too many grandstanding going on in our business. It's time to get back to what we truly all got into it for, hopefully for the right reason, which is we just love the art of storytelling. And that at its core, there's no ego with that. There's no grandstanding. It's just let's tell a great story. And I tell it to all my clients every day. No matter what, no matter who I am, no matter the car I drive or you drive or anybody drives or the trips we go on, whatever, it all comes down to can we tell a great story at the end of the day? And there's no ego involved with that.
I
So
love it.
let's just, focus on that, everybody, and just make that the best it can be.
David, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. And we talked about humanity mainly, and of course, the business itself. But it was an open book, and I really appreciate your time and you giving us this information and sharing the world.
Always, it was my honor, my pleasure, anytime, and I wish nothing but success and happiness and everything for all your listeners.